All right. So just let me know if you have any questions, either in chat or you can call my attention with um, your audio. Where do I put this? And open up our Jupyter notebook. Mm, Some subjects. Batch 17. Ah, right. So it wasn't here. It was on a different device. Let me see if we can download it from the LMS. So that will be using one file, this one file. March 17. All right, we have our lecture notes here. Actually download it. Don't know why. Ah, all right, here we go. I'll just put it on the desktop right now. Mm, And there we have it. Okay, so we'll just continue with this one. If I remember correctly, we stopped at the print statement, the int, the float, the input, and also, yeah, I think that's it. It's only those four, if I remember correctly, from last week. All right. So I'm just going to be going back and forth between the PowerPoint and our um, Jupyter notebook here in my discussion. Okay. So for today, we're going to be focusing first on loops and selections. Hopefully, we can finish that one and we can proceed to the first PowerPoint recording of functions. Okay. Right. So, um, we'll now begin. Laser pointer. Okay. All right. So loops in a program, right? From what you see on my shared screen here is a repetition of statements or repeat an action. So it's very handy when um you want to repeat, right, a certain task, for example, like um add this number 5 times to the same variable, or you want to display the same output 5 times in a row. So instead of typing it out 5 times, like for example, this one, then I'm just going to copy and paste this one, right? Like that. So instead of doing that, you can just create a loop and then it actually saves code and it's much more efficient um, in the long run. So on each pass, right, on each loop, each time the task is repeated, we call that one an iteration. All right. So pass or iteration, it's the same thing. It's actually interchangeable in terms of loops. Okay. And there are two different kinds that we can make. So that's definite iteration, and then there's indefinite iteration. So basically the indefinite one is um the infinite loop. the one that doesn't end, and indefinite is the one that has a certain limit to it. Okay. So we'll start obviously with the most basic for loop. This is how the for loop works. And this is one example. This is how the syntax works for a for loop, all right? So at the top here, we call this one the loop header. At the bottom, we call this one the loop body. So let's go directly to the example here. It might look weird with my lecture notes because whenever I go down, something always happens at the bottom here. I'm not really sure. So I'm kind of going up instead of going down, something like that. Okay, so this is how a for loop works in Python. So you start with the word for, followed by the temporary variable that's going to accept the um, data temporarily from a sequence. So we're going to say temp, and then we have to input the keyword in, and then the sequence that is needed. So in this example, it's using the sequence called range, right? So range for it's not it's a generator if you need to be technical. All right. And then the way that Python works is that in order to group some certain statements into one, right? It uses indentation. So if I press enter immediately here, automatically you can see some kind of indentation, right? So this is one tab key. Depending on your device, your tab key might be bigger or smaller. It's not always the same, but there is a default value. Um, but in this case, it's just one tab key. You just need to remember that one. All right. So in our previous examples, Suruf, you will see that we didn't actually do any kind of indentations. So this is the first one. Okay. Now again, indentations are, let's do it here. Indentations are a way of grouping statements in Python. Grouping statements um or scope. Yeah, that should be the word. All right. Um, okay, so let's say we want to repeat a certain action. Let's say just a very simple one, print, right? And we want to print a certain text, a string of data. Let's say, just my name, for example. I just wanted to print it 4 times. Okay. Now there is an indentation here. So this means that this statement is grouped under the for loop. That's what it means. Okay. It belongs to this group. Okay. It's the same thing as if I put something else here, another tab key, for example, this now statement belongs to this group under print, which also belongs to this one. All right. So that's how the nesting works in this case. So it doesn't matter how many lines I have here at the bottom, right? All of these things are now under the for loop. Okay. So that's what you need to remember in terms of indentation. So it's pretty simple, but also very easy to miss for beginners. All right. Mm, Okay, let's explain range later. For now, just remember that it is a sequence. Let's focus first on the main concept of the for loop. Okay. Um, what you need to remember is the one here must always be a sequence or something that you can get something out of one at a time. Okay. So we'll have more indentations. We'll have more examples of what sequences are later on. Okay. Right now, let's focus on the for loop. So if I run this code, you'll see that it prints out 4 times. Daniel, 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 Daniel. All right. Um, So this is what the for loop does. See, we only have one line of code, right? But it's repeated 4 times. If we do something else, like say, let's say we have a variable here, we're gonna say count, all right? Count, and then we'll have this one equal to 0 for now. And our code is simply to add 5 to it on every loop. So we're gonna say C count, sorry for the wrong spelling, count, right? And then we're gonna add 5 to it every every loop. Am I recording this? And of course you have to print it out afterwards. So print count. So you see it's now equal to 25. Okay, so after on each pass, on each iteration, we will add 5 to what the current value is of count. That's what we're doing here. In fact, if you put a print statement inside here, just so that you can see what's happening with count, all right? If you put it here and run it, you'll see that it's increasing one at a time on each iteration. Okay, so 5, 10, 15, 20, all right? What else? We can even print out the number of what is currently inside temp. All right. So if you remember, this is just a temporary variable of what is currently inside this sequence. Okay. And on each iteration, the sequence will give out one item and store it temporarily on temp. So if you want to view what's inside temp here, if we remove this one, okay, yeah. Let's just take a look at what's inside temp. If I run this code now, it's gonna look like this: 0, 1, 2, and 3. All right. So this is what's inside um this sequence. Okay. Now I say sequence, but this actually is a function, but it works kind of like what a sequence does. Okay, that's the way that this works. It's a special kind of function we call a generator. But more on that later on. Okay. Um, so let's have other examples, okay? So we have the range function, right? This will produce a sequence. What else? What can we have as a sequence? So um, if you think about it, right? A
Sequence, no?
string, basically. Hi, Sir Imran. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Good of you to join us.
Hello, sir. Sorry for being late.
No, it's okay, sir. So I guess there's only one of you that's absent for today, so that's nice. All right, so I'm just gonna continue, sir, if that's okay. All right. Mm, where was I? All right, so I'm looking for more examples as sequences that we can find in Python that we have discussed already. So of the things we have discussed, there is one, and that is the string. Okay, now when you think about it, what is a string? Basically, it's a what? Characters in a, here's the keyword that we're looking for, characters in a sequence. So basically, if we put a string here, any kind of string, whether they are stored in a variable or not, if we put a string here, let's say, mm, let's put some spaces so that we can have an example of what happens. Maybe mm, coffee mug, wrong spelling. Coffee mug. All right. So this is my string. Okay. This is my temporary variable. And what should happen is that it will print out each character on every iteration. Okay. So if I run this, you'll see that each character is now printed out in order. Okay. So on the first iteration, it will give out C to temp, and we can do whatever we want with letter C. We have O afterwards, and it passes that one on the second iteration to temp. Then if we print it out, that's why we see O, okay? And it repeats this pattern until it finishes the whole sequence. Okay, the moment that it reaches G and print and do something with it, that's the end of the sequence. So automatically that's the end of the loop. And if we print something here, just as so that we can see that it's really true, end of loop. So you can see that this line is only printed out at the end when the entire for loop is done. Okay. By the way, don't forget the colon at the end of the for loop. You need this one to identify that it's a for loop. Okay. All right. So we have strings. Okay. Let's see what else do we have here. Annotations, parameters, keywords. So we don't actually have anything yet that we have discussed that we can consider to be sequences, but there are more actually available in Python that we can consider as sequences. All right. But let's just stick to this one for now, since it's the easiest one. So we have the range function and the strings. Okay. Now let's focus back on what the range function um actually does. Okay. So if we go back here in range function, so the range function actually works really simply. Um, so it has four parameters, or no, three. The range function has three parameters. So it has the start, the stop, and the skip. Let's just call it skip. All right. So these are the three variables, the three parameters for this function. Okay. Now, if I'll just explore the others more, but I'll just give you a generalization of what it is. So the stop is where what number it will stop, but not including that number. Start is of course the starting number. Skip is how much it will skip on each and every time that it gives out a number. Okay, now if you remember this one, range 4, right? If you only give one number, that's automatically the stop. So as you can see, and then the default value of start is 0. Default value of skip is 1. So if we put here 0, right, and then this is 1, just so that we can remember. Okay. If you take a look, it starts at 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it stops at 4, but not including the number 4, right? We also have skip. So if you see 0, 1, 2, 3, it's kind of like adding 1 on every time that it gives out a number. Okay. And then stop. Yeah. So as you can see, the one it reaches 4, it doesn't really include it. If we have two numbers, right? Let's say I wanted to start at um 5 and I want it to end at 10, right? So two numbers, that's automatically the start and the stop. Run the code, and as you can see, it will start at 5 and at 9 because 10 is not included. All right. If we say that this is 20 and then you want it to skip by 5, it's just going to show you three numbers, so 5, 10, 15, because, but again, 20 is not included. So this is what the range function is for. It's good for creating these kinds of patterns. But the most basic use is just one number, all right? And the way that you think about, uh, the way that you wrap your head around this is that whatever the number there is, that's how many times the loop will repeat. Okay, so if you put 5, it will repeat what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the amount of repetitions. It's, that's just a kind of hack that we can do. Whatever number you put here, that's how many times the repetition occurs. All right. That's not exactly its use, but we can make use of that one to make it easier for us to remember how to use the for loop, right? So whatever number we put there, as long as it's one number, that's how many times it will repeat. Okay. Um, So if that's a number, let's say we want to do something to each number, maybe raise it to the power of 2. If we run it, as you can see, we also have a different result. Okay. Again, the number will be passed here to X, and we can do anything we want with it inside of our group here on the for loop. So that's basically it for the for loop. If we go and proceed to the next slide, it's just a series of examples so that we can see. Mm, just using exponent here. So for this example, we have range exponent, right? It's using the exponent variable as the stop value. Okay, so 3, meaning it has to repeat 3 times. So we have 248 as indicated in the print statement here. Okay, so they put a print inside the for loop, see? And then what it does is it multiplies the current product to that number. Number is 2. So this is actually, number is actually constant in this case, but product changes on every loop. So it changes from what the first loop is 1 times 2 is 2. Next loop is 2 times 2 is 4. And then the next loop is 4 times 2 is 8. That's what we have here. Okay, it's not really making use of the exponent directly and the variable called each pass, right? Um, it's using that one as how many times you have to repeat because that's how exponents work, right? So 2 to the power of 3, you're just basically multiplying 2 um, 3 times to itself, right? And that's what you have here. Control loops, count control loops, yes. This is what we had earlier. Different ways we can use the range function. Bound, delimited, summation. Let's see here. Mm, so it's basically using what we've learned from last week. So we have an input, we have to convert it into an integer, and then put it in a variable. So that this part serves as our lower bound, and this one serves as our upper bound. Okay. So essentially our start and our stop values that we put here. Okay. So we say we put lower bound of 1 and 10, but we want to include 10. So if we want to include the number 10, then we can just add 1 to it. Automatically, 10 will be included, but 11 will not, right? So we have the sum here, and from the name itself, summation, it will just add all the numbers, starting from the start point to the end point, which is 10. And this is the most basic formula that we can do. There's actually no indentation here, but there should be one. All right, there should be one. And if you print it out, it will come out as 55. All right. So don't worry. We'll have exercises later on to test our programming skills. All right. Augmented assignment. This is what I used earlier with the count, if you remember, the plus equal. All right. So this is basically just a shortcut to mean exactly the same thing. So if you see A plus equals, right, it essentially means A is equals to A plus 3, right? And all you have to do is change the operation before the equal sign, and it will mean exactly like following here. Okay, so if you have minus, then it means A is equals to A minus 3. Um, so you get the value, you do the operation and then save it back to the same variable. Okay, so you might be asking, what's the difference between the two? It's just basically efficiency. So what happens is that in the early 1900s, 1990s, 80s, when computers started becoming available to the public, right? What they needed was they needed to save more of the memory that's available on our devices. So at that time, it wasn't in terms of gigabytes that we have now. It was just in terms of a couple of MB, all right? And then you want to save the most that you can, right? You want to be as efficient as you can, right? So not going into the technicalities of why the one on the left is more efficient, um, they found out that they created this kind of system and it's actually much more efficient. It saves you um a few bytes of memory, I think, and then some processing power as well. But nowadays, we have our devices are very powerful. We have a very powerful CPU and a big amount of RAM, right? It's very often that we can't actually use all of it anymore, unless we actually intend to use all of it. There are some tasks that require a lot of memory, like video editing, games, mm, what else? Simulations, those kinds of things, right? But for just regular use, right, office use, you can't really maximize the whole processor and the whole RAM itself. Okay, so again, this isn't. Uh, it's coming to the point that the efficiency that you get from using this one is um, not really useful anymore. So you either use this one or this one. It's okay. It doesn't really matter at this point. Um, so yeah, but it's always handy because it looks a lot neater, right? It's a lot less confusing. You have to put some extra processing power on your brain to analyze this one. That A is equals to itself. You add three and then assign it back. Whereas to this one, it's fairly simple. So you say A, and then you add three to it to the variable A. That's it. Um, so yeah, if you keep on programming, it actually gets easier and easier to look at this code rather than this one, from my experience, right? So no need actually to do examples on this. It's fairly straightforward. Um, Loop errors or off by one. So this is what we actually saw earlier. Like it includes the stop. Wait, it doesn't include the stop parameter, right? But it stops there. Okay, so from there, let's see loops count from one to three, not including four. So they made it this way so that it works the same way how arrays work in programs. So it always starts counting at the zero. And they did this in order for the basic errors like off by one errors to occur, right? Because you're off by one. Um, that's what they call it, off by one. So by excluding the stop point, you essentially avoid this kind of error. Um, so yeah, you might be thinking that if you put four here, okay, and then you have to think that zero must be included instead of starting at one, right? So if you just start at one, then there's just four numbers. But if you actually include zero, it's actually five, right? Um, so five, right? It starts at zero and ends at four. But if you don't actually see the output, right, you might be thinking that it's only what? Um, it's only, let's see. Oh no, it's actually the opposite. So you start thinking that since zero is included, you might be thinking that it's six items on the sequence, where in fact, if you run it, there's only five, right? And this actually helps out a lot when we are dealing with lists later on because it aligns properly where it starts at zero and ends properly um, on what you indicate here. So it's not really that useful right now for lists, but later on when we encounter it, we'll be using it a lot. Okay. So yeah, off by one error. Okay, treasures. Okay, there's actually a sample of a list here. Okay, so let's go and have a short introduction of what a list is. All right, so list is another kind of a sequence that we can use. And it looks like this. When you want to declare a list, it looks something like this. So let's say my list is equals to my list is equals to you start with an open and close bracket. All right, and inside there, each item that we call them an item is separated by comma. So it can be any kind of data type. So it can be numbers. Okay, so as you can see, each number is separated by a comma, right? It can also be um, strings. Like for example, we have a list of I don't know, fruits, orange, orange, um, banana, and then maybe star apple, right? Let's just say we have three. Or you can have a mix of it, right? So if you have some certain numbers here and then some certain strings as well, okay? You can mix them up actually, so that's okay. But this doesn't actually make sense, right? It's usually better to use list when they are of the same data type for its items. So basically, it's a sequence of data, similar to how strings work. Okay. In this case, each item is separated by a comma. So if it's a sequence, then automatically we can use that one as uh, a sequence in our for loop, right? So for X in uh, my list, right? And then I'm gonna declare this one above, okay? And colon. So if I print this one out, right, and run it, you'll see that it just prints out each item one by one until what? The sequence is done. All of the items are processed, all right? So on each loop, my list will get one item, give it to X, and then we can do something with X. So in this case, we're just printing it out, go back to the beginning, get one item, give it to X, print, go back to the beginning, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's exactly the same thing as what's happening with the string earlier, right? Okay. Um so yeah, well exactly what we did, the things that we did, right? You can also do it here. Like if you were to use concatenation and add, right? You're gonna use concatenation and add a string to it. Let's say we're gonna add the string called um flower. Okay. There's no meaning actually to this, it's a word. And automatically you'll see that that word is added at the end of the string, right? So exactly the same thing as what we have been doing earlier. So that's a list. Mm, let's see what it's using here. The range. In this case, it's using list. So list is kind of a special function. In this case, it creates lists like this one. It creates lists. The reason why it's using that on range is because if you remember, range is a range is not exactly a sequence. Not exactly, not exactly a sequence. My keyboard is not responding properly. So not exactly a sequence. It's a generator. Okay. But it behaves like a sequence, but it behaves like one. All right. So it's not exactly a sequence, technically speaking, but it behaves like one. So if we use a list function on it, right? Basically it collects all of those things and then puts it on a list. And that's what we see here. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Exactly what we see if we were just to use that one on a regular range like this one. See, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. The only difference is that the list function here is collecting all of those sequences and then puts it on a list. This one, it's not a list at the beginning, okay? More like on each loop, the function is being um, called, and then it gives out one number at a time. So there's a difference. This is already set. It's already there. This one gives out one number at a time. Okay. So that's how generators work. Okay. List, right? So the same thing with earlier, just the range 2, 11, and 2. You're adding all of it to get the sum. It's actually called a step, right? So it's not skip, it's step. So sorry about that. Okay, what else? Loops that count down. Oh yeah, so you can actually do this one with the range. You can start with a higher starting point for x in range, right? And then you start with a higher number, let's say 20, and then you want it to stop at 5, and then you want it to um have a step of -5, so it goes down, right? Number goes down. And if you print x here, you'll see it starts from 20 and ends in 10. Now, what we've seen so far is a very simple application of x, right? Because we're just discussing right now how for loops work, okay? But it can get more complicated than this one, okay? Especially later on our exercises. So, how many did we skip? Mm, Formatting text. So it's actually a different topic now. Yep, I guess this is a good time to have an exercise actually. All right. So I hope everyone participates. This will be our first exercise. So I have this one ready here. Okay. So this one is marked down. Okay. Let's make these things bigger. All right. So exercise number 1, the sum of even numbers. Write a program that calculates the sum of all even numbers from number 1 to a user specified upper limit inclusive. So let's deduct that one first, okay? Um, so sum of all even numbers, right? So you're gonna ask the user using the input what your last number will be, okay? Let's say 20. And that number must be included if it's an even number. It must be added as well, okay? And then it will always start at 1. Okay, so with everything that we have learned so far, I want you to make use of them and create a program out of this, right? So I highly encourage everyone to do this. Avoid for now using or looking for help in Google or using AI. I want you guys to really use your brain on this one, okay? Um, so it's always nice not to depend too much on those what you search for on Google and AI because there will always come a point where they don't have the answers. So it's always best when you know how to think, you know how to program in your head, right? How to dissect problems into their smaller subproblems. That's the key skill that we want to learn. Okay, so I want you guys to start. I'll give you guys around 15 minutes or 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes is enough for this, and then we'll have 5 minutes of discussion. Um, and then one more exercise before we proceed to the next section. Okay, so your timer starts now. 1:57. Right. So I'll be here, okay? If you guys have any questions, just let me know.
Sir, should we send the code in the chat or is there anything interactable in
No,
the yeah.
oh no, actually, you do it on your own Jupyter notebook, and then later on, I'll ask you guys to share your screen, and then we'll review it together.
Oh, okay, sir. Oh, wait, sir. Oh, what do you mean by notebook?
Again, by what?
What do you mean by the notebook?
This one, our Jupyter notebook. So, um, I want you guys to share your screen and then show me your Jupyter notebook, the one that I have here on my screen, something like this, and then show me your code.
Ah, okay, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, sir. Sir, after po nito, ano pong gagawin? If may pagpapasahan po ba? Sir, nakamute po ata.
Hello? Hello?
Ayun, ayun.
Okay. There's actually no need to submit it. It's just an exercise. You'll just be sharing your answers via screen share.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So do you
So,
want to go
sir,
first, Mr. Rev?
okay lang po.
All right. So, yeah, I'll give you the floor. Let me stop my share screen. Okay, you can go ahead and share your screen, sir.
Wait po. Wait lang, sir.
Now,
Ayun, sir, kita po ba?
yes.
Ayun, so naglagay po lang po ako ng i-input ng user kung ano po yung maging upper limit. Then naglagay po ako ng variable for total. Then naggumawa po ako ng for loop wherein yung X po magche-check ng from 1, chine-check niya po yung mga naka-input na numbers from 1 to upper limit. Titingnan niya po yung modulo kung for if it is an even or an odd number. So pag add po, di po siya kasali kasi po nakalagay po dito sa if statement. Then dun po sa summation na po dito sa next line, total.
Mm-hmm.
Then ipiprint niya po yung total from oo, tama. From 1. Kasi ang total po sa una, 0 is kasi 1 sa 1 po nagsimula. So 0 po magiging total. Then 2 hanggang po makuha niya yung total hanggang sa upper limit. Since in-input ko po yung upper limit 18. So yan po yung naging total nila 90. Wait, i-run ko lang sir. Check ko lang po ulit.
All right. Because it
So
seems
pag
that it's printing twice. I don't,
pa.
yeah.
So pag 5, 5, 1, 2 plus 4, 6. And okay naman sir.
Okay. So why is two repeating? So it should be print total. The first value of total
5.
is 0. The
Yes po.
next value is all right. So you're printing total. I think it's better if you print total when it's an even number. Try putting it inside of the if statement.
Okay sir.
So I was actually trying to avoid using the if statement because we haven't actually discussed that, but this is okay.
Sorry, sir.
It's all right.
Yun po kasi
Okay.
una ko naisip.
Yep,
Sorry
that's all
po.
right. Okay, try running the program now. Okay, same number. All right, so
Ayun.
that looks better. Now,
Sorry, sir.
it was really weird earlier because it's kind of repeating. All right, so thank
Apa.
you for sharing your answers, everyone. How about the others? Sir JJ has no answer yet. He'll be right back. That's okay. How about Sir Imran and Seji? Do you guys have a similar solution or maybe an entirely different one?
Sir, to be honest, totally clueless ako. Pero, hindi ko nga siya ma-run eh. Pero,
Mm.
observe muna siguro ako, sir.
Do you need help with your program, sir?
Hindi siya maganda, sir.
No, that's okay, sir. It's that's what we are here for. So yeah, you're free to share your screen and I can guide you.
Sige, sige. Ah, sige, try natin. Sige.
So I guess it's because you haven't been did you watch the recording
Guys,
of the first session? Were you
actually,
able?
sir, hindi pa rin eh. Kasi ano ko eh, may work kasi ako eh. So, hindi siya
All right.
nabigyan ng oras. Pasensya na, sir.
That's okay. That's completely understandable. I also work two jobs as well, so yeah, time management is really critical. So let's see. You have 4x in range, 0, 21, and 2. And that's actually correct. But where did you get the sum formula?
Ah, Actually, sir, 'di ba sabi ano daw, i-add daw lahat ng
Yes.
even from 1 hanggang 20. So, based dun sa kaninang pinag-usapan niyo, sir,
Mm,
inalam ko muna yung ano, yung mga i-a-add.
mm,
So, ang ginawa ko, parang kung tatanggalin ko tong sum, yung sum sinearch ko lang siya sa internet kung
mm,
paano ba mag-sum, parang
mm.
gano'n. Tapos yun yung
Ah,
lumabas. So, ito nakuha ko 'to. So, kailangan ko lang siyang i-add.
yeah, yep. So if you remember, you have access to all those even numbers now, right? So you're actually making good use of the range, skipping it by two, starting it at you should start it at one.
Hindi
Yeah.
ko makuha, sir, yung 1.
No.
Tina-try
Oh,
negative
okay.
2, ayaw niya, eh.
Mm. So
Anong gagawin ko, sir?
if you were to start at one, right, and then how many times will you have to increase it? So plus
2
one and
plus
then
1.
plus two plus two plus two, right? So it's kind of wrong if you think about it. We can't put it on the range function like that. All right. Can you
So,
try running
mali
it?
lahat.
Yeah. So I think what will come out are even odd numbers, right?
Yeah, odd
Odd
numbers nga, sir,
numbers.
lumalabas.
So I guess my instruction was kind of off. So I should have said from zero. Yeah. Okay. So that was my mistake. Can you go back and make it zero?
0 na lang, sir. O sige.
Yes. Make it zero, and then.
Classmates,
mm, So if you remember, we can create variables, right? So it's kind of like our um, temporary storage, right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mm.
So I want you to create a variable outside of for loop,
Outside.
above it. Yeah, above it. So
Sige.
okay, so create a variable so that that will be our sum. Okay, you're gonna call it a. No, no, no. Just assign zero to it. Assign zero. Okay, at the beginning it's equal to zero. So what do you want to do again? You want to add each number to get the total. So maybe we can call it total instead. So whenever you're creating variables, make sure it's descriptive. Okay, total. All right. So now we have a total of zero. So what do you want to do? We want to add all the numbers to get the total of all the numbers, right? So we can just say inside of our for loop, total is equals to um the current value itself plus the value of x on each iteration. So you need to put that one inside of the for loop.
Ano ulit yun, sir? Sorry, medyo
That's
didn't
okay. You
that.
need to go inside of the for loop. Put your cursor, yeah, okay, and then press enter. All right, go back to the top. Okay, press the tab key,
Tab, okay.
and then what you need to put there is um the current total value, total is equals to, all right,
Mhm.
the current value of total plus
So, total
total
ulit.
plus, yep, and the current value of x plus x. Because you have access to X, right? No, not anymore the equal sign, just plus. You
Plus
already have
X.
the equal sign at the left. So total is equals to total plus X, right? You get the current value of total, you add the current value of X, and then assign everything back to total. So that in that way, on the next iteration, the value of total will also change. So if you run the code, try printing out total there. Okay,
Total.
run, and there you go. So you have
Tama.
your total of 110.
Okay. Tama to,
Yeah.
sir.
Let's try and review. Can you move your mouse? Okay, so the first X value that we have is 0, right? The next one is 2. So what we see there is 2. The next even number is 4. So 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 plus 8 is 20. 20 plus 10 is 30. Plus 12, 42. Plus 14, it's 56. Plus 16, it's 72. Plus 18, it's 90. And then plus 20, it's 110. So that's correct, sir.
Mm. Okay, thank you, sir,
Yep. No worries, sir. How about the others, Sir Saji, Sir JJ? Do you have some is your solution similar to this one?
Oh, ano po? Let me see. Because I couldn't find the Jupyter notebook, so at first I did everything on a notepad.
That's okay, sir.
So,
You can just use anything for now if you don't have Anaconda yet or a Jupyter notebook.
um, actually, mine's pretty incomplete. I wasn't sure how to implement the upper yet.
Mm,
Maybe if I could share the.
yeah.
No, no, not that one. It's not that. Radius half. Show all windows. Hold on, sir. Let me see if I can find it. Here. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see it,
All right.
but
So it's still
it's
loading.
still a
Yeah, I
bit
can see it.
incomplete.
Oh,
Yeah,
so what you have there is count is equals to 0. All right. So for temp and range, but you have no values inside of range yet.
not yet, sir.
Okay. So mm, what's the sum for the sum?
I remember this instruction of the sum of all even numbers, so I assumed the output would be a singular number, just like the examples with the sum. I assumed that would be the case.
Yes. Yeah, that would have been the file output. Yeah, I actually forgot that one from the others. So well, what I was actually looking for was the process of how they did it with the for loop. But yeah, the additional step on what Sir Rev and Sir what was that earlier, Imran, to their program is just to add another print statement at the end, and then they would have the the sum of all even numbers. But we already saw the total already. Um, so that's why I considered it correct. But in this case, all right, so you have the sum, but you're not assigning the sum yet
Mhm.
to. mm, all right, so you saw the solution of Sir Imran, right, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so maybe you can just follow that one because it looks like you're going in the same direction as him as well. So,
Mm.
if you want, by the way, an online compiler for Python, let's see if I still have this here. Mm, or maybe an online version of Jupyter Notebook. All right, so let me share my screen. I'm gonna take over.
Sir. All right, sir. How do I unshare screen? Let's
Okay.
see. Not the screen. No, 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 no. Oh, sorry, sir. Let me see if I could stop. There we go. Stop share. Okay, there
It's
you go,
already
sir.
okay. Yeah. All right. So if for you, sir, if you want to use an online version of Jupyter Notebook, there's actually one. But I don't really recommend this because it's a bit slow. So all you have to do is go to collab.google. I wonder if it will still load. Okay, so while that's loading, let me see if I still have. Nope, that one. Let's just search one. Free online Python 9 Python compiler. That's not really loading collab.google. Maybe it's not working anymore. This one would work. Okay, so just go to online-python.com. Anyways, we're still at the Python stage. We're not yet at the data science part. So you can use this one for now to do our exercises, if you're okay with it, sir.
Yeah, that'll be fine, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So for Sir JJ, how about you, sir? Are you back? Do you have an answer? Right. So I think Sir JJ is not here yet. Okay. Let's just proceed for now, and go to the next few slides. Um, I guess we'll have a break at around 3, and then we'll come back and continue. Maybe a 15-minute break. All right. Formatting text for output. Okay. So when you're just using Python, um, you're using Python only, right? Yeah, odds are your only output is the ones on the output section like this one, okay? But as data scientists, we're not limited to simple text, right? We can output graphs that are interactable if we put them on the web. Graphs that change depending on what you choose, okay? So I'm going to show you some example of what you will expect in the future when we reach that part. So for example, this one, okay, this is actually interactable, this graph. If you click only alpha, then you'll see only the beta one. If you click on the alpha again and remove the beta, you'll see only the alpha one. So if you hover your mouse, it's kind of like there's a kind of outline, a darker outline, and then you'll see the actual values for that bar graph. Okay. Same thing goes for the others here. So see, it becomes interactable. So when you're kind of presenting this one, your research or your results to your bosses, managers, or even your audience, right? It becomes a lot easier for them to grasp the knowledge. Okay. So yeah, using this one for now is actually enough. But if we go back to our lesson, right? Formatting text for output, we're just basically limited to simple text, right? And this is just us trying to format it to look a bit better and neater. Okay, again, we don't actually need this one. There are a bunch of libraries that make it a lot easier for us instead of doing it like this. Okay, but we'll just explore this one since we're just at the Python stage. Okay, so if you see here, if we print out something like this, so 7 to 11, 10 to the power exponent, it's gonna look something like this. So it's not really aligned, right? So what you do is you want it to align. Okay, so there's actually something like this. We call this one the format string. So it has the syntax format string, percent, and then the datum that that format string will work on. Okay. Um, the letters that you will see, right? The D stands for um, decimal, right? And then S here, I forgot what the S is for. So I don't really use this one a lot. But this is an example of how we can use that. So let's just do it right here. Okay. So for for loop, right? It was for loop um exponent, right? Exponent in range of 7 up to 11. What did I do? 7 to 11. This is what happens when you're using Bluetooth keyboards. Okay, and then you're gonna print, right? You're gonna print the result that should be in what? What did it have earlier? So exponent 10 to the power of exponent. Okay? So we have exponent and then exponent 10 and to the power of exponent. All right, so if we print this one out, sorry, not times to the power. Okay, so it's not aligned, right? The output is not aligned. So if we use a format string for this one, all right, let's just copy and paste it. We're gonna use a format string. So how does this one work? So you start with the format string itself. So the format string from the name itself is a string. You indicate the width or how many characters that data has. So that's the you always start with a percent. Let's say the width is 3 and then it's a decimal number, okay? And then for the next number that follows, you say it has a width of 12, so 12 characters, 12 spaces for numbers, right? And then it's also a decimal, right? So take a look at the example here. So 3, right? So it's up to hundreds, so 3 digits. And then 12 here we're gonna set this one as the width. Okay, so up to 12 digits. It's gonna format it up to 12 digits. Next is the syntax that follows is we're gonna add a percent sign here after the string, and then we're gonna indicate the datum on where that specific format string will work. So we want it to work at exponent for the first one, and then the second one we want it to work for 10 to the power of exponent. So if you take a look, the format is the same, right? So you put this one at the end, and then you'll just need the format string and then the percent sign. Basically, this will indicate how this value is formatted. This will also indicate how this value is formatted. All right. So if we run this code, there is an extra one. Okay. Now, if you take a look at the output, right? All of them are right aligned. Okay, and it kind of looks like they're a bit neater compared to this one, right? It's a bit easier on the eyes. But let's see. We could make this one better. We could align the first number to the left instead of to the right like this. So in terms of alignment, all you have to do is add a negative sign on the format string, okay, on the datum that you wanted to act on. And then if you run this code, you'll see that this is now left aligned. Okay. So if you want to left align the other number, just put a negative and that's it. Right. So I think, yeah, this is wrong. This is actually much better, right? Because it's actual numbers. What happens if you go over the digits, right? So we have 12 here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12. There's an extra space here. So we have an extra one. That's why it's not showing up. 3 here, 3. So 1, 2, 3. So one extra space for the first datum, one extra space for the second datum. So meaning if we go ahead and make this one to 15, for example. All right. So now we're going over our limit. So once it goes over the limit, it goes back to its original behavior and acts like this one. The same way as how this one is acting, but it's still aligning itself, kind of like what columns do in Excel. All right. Um, so that's what we're doing. That's what the format string does, right? But again, really, this is just for informational purposes. We're not going to be using this one a lot. Um, in fact, if we're going to be using something, we're going to be using something called the S string. All right. So let's say we have a variable count, it's equals to 5, right? And then we want to print something. Okay. We want to say that Um, in order for the F string to work, you put an F in the beginning and then just regular strings. Okay. So this is what is really used a lot nowadays in terms of formatting strings. It's a lot easier and um, it combines expressions and strings in one line. So take something like this, for example, the value of count is. You can add directly the variable inside of the print statement by using an open and close bracket. And inside this bracket is any kind of expression that you want. So let's say, for example, we just want the count here, the count, right? We want the count to appear at this part of the string. So if we press this one and run it, it's going to say the value of count is 5. So whatever the value of count, right, will be placed in this section. Again, this can be any expression that you want. You can do operations here. See, you can do operations. You can do a bit more complex things, right? But the main point here is that um, you are typing out in one line the string together with what you want to put inside at that part of the string. Okay. Um, so this is actually a bit easier. All right. Um, so yeah. that's it. Actually, there's no need for us to discuss the other parts. It's just for, again, knowledge purposes on how it works in case you encounter something like that. So in this case, if you want it to have an accuracy or a precision in terms of decimal places, you can put a dot afterwards. So you have field width, right? The number here. So if you put a dot here, and then automatically what comes after is the precision, right? So how many decimal places you want, let's say two, and then F, you put the F there. Um, wait. Okay, so it's actually formatted in a different way. It needs to be inside of the string. Okay, so it's not exactly like this. So it needs to be, right. So it needs to be, okay, so we can't use an F string on this one. So count of 5. It needs to be a regular string like this one. And then the value of um count is, right, from the format here, you start with the dollar. And once Python detects the dollar sign, it automatically sees that one as a kind of format string. So this is a different one compared to this one, right? A different way of doing it. So you put a dollar sign and then the field width. So 0.2, right? 0.2 F. And then F is an indication that it's a float, a floating point number. Percent, and then after percent is the data that you want it to work on, which is count. And then if you run the code, it's not working. What am I missing? Salary percent. All right, I'm missing the percent key here. There we go. All right, so percent dollar. Okay, so dollar is part of the string. It's the percent sign, the same as this one, that indicates uh, the start of the format string. So it's actually percent 0.2 F. This is the entire format string. And we can see here that it's formatted into two decimal places. If we change it to 4, it will be formatted to 4 decimal places. All right. If we say this is about 2, let's try doing 2. Mhm. Let's try making count a bit bigger. How about 100? So it just goes to the left. How about 10? I don't really notice a difference, but I guess it will always be 0 in this case. It's just for precision type formatting. Okay. But it indicates field width, but it's not really adjusting itself to the way that I want. 3, 100. Hmm, not really sure how this works. Okay. So that just goes to show that I don't really use this one a lot. Again, there are other functions that are much better than this one. Right. So now we go to the if and if else statement. If you remember the solution of Sir Webb earlier was using an if statement. So this is how it works. Okay. Basically, this is the decision-making part in all programming languages. Right. They always have the same kind of thought process. So whenever a decision is needed, you always will use an if or an if else statement. Okay, so how does this work? Um, Basically, we're going to be using booleans here. So booleans are what? They are the true and false values. They only have those kind of values. Uh, So we're going to be using comparison operators a lot because again, these operators will reduce only two outputs, true and false. Okay. Okay. Let's go now to our example. Right. This is a syntax, by the way, of how if conditions work. There's no there's no tab here, but there should be a tab similar to this one. Okay. Let's say that we have a value for age, and then we're gonna set it to 18. 18. All right, and then we'll ask a question like, if the user is above 18, then they can enter. If they are below 18, then they can't enter the website. Okay, so we're gonna say if, right? We're gonna be using a comparison operator. If age is greater than or equal to 18, right? What do we do? Right? So the syntax indicates that we're gonna need a um, colon afterwards. So this is the condition, right? This is the condition. This is what it needs to be either true or false. So if it's true, what do we do? The program will simply say, uh, please enter. 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 All right. Okay. I'm guessing my keyboard is doesn't have enough charge. Let me just patch it real quick. Okay. Yep, I think that's better. Okay, please enter. All right. Let's start with that. Okay. So if we let's have another print statement here. It's gonna say outside of the if statement. Just so that we'll know where we are at our program. Okay, so if I'm going to run this code, it's going to say, please enter. All right. And after that, it will say print outside of the if statement. So it's working, right? The moment that the age becomes 16, for example, it's not going to print anything, right? So what do we want to do? What if we actually wanted to do something when the value is false? So when the value is false, this is where the else comes in. Okay. So we're gonna say print, and then it's gonna say what do I say? Please
Please leave.
please leave. Yeah, that's good. I was gonna say please grow up. All right. Uh so as you can see, yeah, please leave. So when the condition is false, it will go directly to the else statement and then execute this one. It will skip this one entirely. So this is what we have here. Please leave. We can make this more interactive by changing this one into an input. So int input, um, please enter your age, space. All right, so that's 20, enter, please enter, or else I think this is too close, right? Um, just some kind of separator. It's kind of annoying to look at the eyes. The eyes, okay, there. All right. So this is how if statements work. Okay. It's a very simple application. But what if we have um an additional check, right? Like if you are not greater than or equal to 18, right? So what else can we do? Maybe if you are if age is what? Let's change this one. If age is greater than 60, right? That's you get where it'll say you get a discount. discount, right? If age is still greater than but equal to 18, it will say, please enter. Just the regular please enter. There we go. Let's just add some space here. All right, and then if both of those conditions are false, then it will go directly to the else statement. So let's see how this goes. If we enter 60, you get a discount, please enter. All right, sorry, I forgot. It's an elif, actually, elif. The keyword here is elif. So this entire thing is um, one decision, right? There's only one decision that we can make, all right? So if we say 60, you get a discount. This one is executed. If we say 50, right? Oh, wait, run and then 50. So this one becomes false, but this one becomes true, right? So if you run this code, you can still enter the website, for example, but you don't get the discount. And if you run this code again, we'll give it 16, then you need to leave the website. All right. So this is kind of like an additional check, more like um a different condition, another check. Yeah, um it's the same way with how you present the requirements in an airport. Like for example, um yeah, I think it's gonna be good. So in the airport, right, you are asked for a ticket, right? So you have a ticket. This will be, let's say this is true for now. True. And you have a ID. ID customer. So ID is not accepted. True. All right. Let's say these things are true. Uh, we're gonna create an if statement. So if ticket, now my space is responding to you. If ticket, right? We can do it like this because what? It's already in true or false format. So we can just do it directly like that. If ticket, then um maybe the teller will say um maybe just the teller will just say okay. But then it's also gonna ask, do you have an ID? Question mark. And then we'll put another what? A succeeding if statement. So in this case, it's more like a follow-up question if the first one is true. So you're going to have another if statement here inside, and you can say if ID customer, right? And if this is true, then the teller will say, please board the plane. Something like that. All right. Else, maybe the teller will say, do you have any other identification, mission. So sorry about this. Um, yeah, we'll just stop there for now. Um, if ticket, right? Maybe if you don't have the ticket, it will ask, um, if you have what? What do you usually do when you don't have the ticket? They're gonna ask if you have the code. We're gonna say ticket code, and I'm gonna set this one to false in this case, right? elif and then ticket code. All right, what will it do? Uh, it will say, oh wait, let's just use true for now, just not to make anything confusing. True. All right, so you have the ticket code, then it's gonna do everything all over again. Okay, same thing. Um, but there's actually a better way to do it, a more efficient way, but let's just stick to this one for now, since it's easier to follow with if it's formatted like this. Okay. Next is an else statement. So what will it do once those two conditions are false? Then it's gonna say uh, print please buy a ticket at the counter or something. All right. So I think this is good. Okay. Um, so either one of the conditions, if ticket or ticket code, then it's gonna do the same thing. It's gonna say, do you have an ID? Then if the ID customer is true, then of course they can board the plane. Else, it's gonna ask for further identifications. Now I could have added more if else statements underneath this one, right? But we're missing the point, right? So you can do that in your own free time, but I'm just giving out an example of how to do it, right? Okay, so if we run this code, ID customer, an indent doesn't match your outer indentation. Not too sure what do you mean. Hmm? Let me see one indent. Okay, this one. Right. So it's gonna say if all of this is true, then if ticket, right? It's gonna ask, okay, do you have an ID? Then if customer is true, then it's gonna say please board the plane. If we set ID customer to false, all right, it's gonna say, do you have any other identification? If we set this one back to true and then set the ticket to false, then this entire thing will not trigger. It will go here to the elif, right? So if you run this code, it will ask the same thing. If we set the ID of the customer to false again, it will ask for an identification. So the same result, but the condition is different, right? Else, if both of them are false, then it's just gonna direct you to buy another ticket at the counter. All right. So of course, an actual program for ticketing is actually much more complicated, but you get the idea of how it should work. Okay. Um, let's see. We can actually improve this one by using Boolean, no, wait, logical operators. So we're gonna say if either ticket or ticket code is true. So we're gonna use the or logical operator here, the two pipes or the or. Yeah, I think it's the or, and then code, ticket code. Okay, so if we just remove this one, so there's actually less code, right? So in this case, what we're trying to do is if either, please buy a ticket. Maybe using the correct one. Or was it the pipes? And ID customer here. Invalid. What was the OR operator again? OR operator Python. No, I'm looking for the logical operator. Yep, it's actually the or. I remember correctly. So if ticket or ticket code, right? Let's try and remove this one for now. Let's see if it works. Right, so it works. We say this one is true. True, right? And it's gonna ask if you have an ID. Now let's go back and add the previous code. All right, why does this create an error? Let's try and analyze it. So if ticket or ticket code, what's the error here? Should we run it? Ticket or ticket code. Let's force the error. What do we see? All right, so this is just okay, it's from Grammarly. Sorry, I thought it was an error in Jupyter. Okay, so now you see that it still works, right? Even if we set the ticket code to false, um, it's gonna do the same thing because the ticket is true. Same way how if we set the ticket to false and this one to true, all right, it's gonna work the same way because we're using the or logical operator. And how this works is that if either one of the left or right condition is true, then the entire expression here becomes true. All right. The only time that it becomes false is if the left and right conditions uh have false values, right? Okay, so that's basically how an if statement works. Okay, it can get complicated real quick depending on the logic that you're trying to work on. So there are cases where there are multiple if statements that you need depending on how your thought process work. So usually this is a kind of thing that you need in order for you not to get lost. You're going to create some kind of diagram, and from this, you'll create your if statements, right? So this is the decision part. If it's true, then it will execute these blocks of code. If it's false, then it will execute these blocks of code, and then goes directly here at the end of the line. See, it's just gonna end up at the same point at the end. Okay, in which case it's gonna go to the next line, which is after this one, after this entire thing, it's the end. So that's what we see here. Okay. All right. So this is one way, right? If you're just using one um, if you're using multiple conditions, so you're gonna use the elif, okay, and then finally at the end, you're gonna use the else. So we're done with this. Um, There you go. So it's a simplified code. See, it's using the OR operator. The one that I used earlier, just for context, this one, it's still the OR operator, but it was actually used in a different language. So I'm kind of mixing them up in this case. So here are the logical operators. So there's only three. We have the AND, the OR, and the NOT. Okay. So basically what you need to remember is for the AND operator, it will only become true if both A and B is true. The same thing with what happens in real life, right? Um, mm, we could have formatted this line of questioning and say uh, both the ticket and the ID must be true uh, in order for you to board the plane, right? So we could have formatted it like this, and right, and and ID customer, right? So both of those things need to be true. So what do? We can just go directly and say, please board the plane. Um, Else buy a ticket at the counter, right? So something like that. So as you can see, since the ticket is false, then um, they're gonna say, please buy a ticket the counter. Oh yeah, we can actually put an L here if we want, right? But the ID customer here needs to be true in order for this one to actually for you to board the plane. Uh, if we set this one to true, right? Both of them are true, then run the code is gonna say please board the plane. If one of them becomes false, automatically it will direct you to buy a ticket. Okay. So the not operator is basically just the opposite of what the value is. So if you have a value that's true, it's just going to turn it to false, right? There are certain applications of that one. In cases where you want to uh, disable a function to work temporarily to respond to events, those kinds of stuff. It's fairly common in the game development. Okay. Yeah, we can skip this one. Compound Boolean expressions. Yeah, we're done with that. Okay. For short circuit evaluation, this is basically just for knowledge purposes. It's a way Python does in order to be efficient when it comes to logical operators. Let's say, for example, this one. Remember what I said earlier about the logical operators, that the AND operator only becomes true if both the left and right side is true. Okay, but the way that Python works is that it goes from top down, right? Inside and out, left to right. So it works from top down, right? Um, if you have some sections here that are separated by parentheses, okay, it's gonna execute that one first and then left to right. So Python will see the ticket first. We'll see the ticket variable first, and it takes note, right? It sees that ticket is actually equal to true. Next is the AND operator, right? Now automatically Python knows that, okay, since this is true, right, I can go ahead and check the second one if it's also true, right? But what happens if it's false, right? Once it's false, right, automatically, whatever the value of ID customer is, it will always be false, right? Because it needs the both of them to be true. In this case, since the first one is false, Python will say, there's no need to check the second one because it's already false. The final value will still be false, right? Why would I check this one? Why would I waste my processor, right, and memory to check that one, right? Especially if it's an expression, not just a true or false values. That's what the idea of short circuit evaluation is. Okay. Python will avoid checking the first, the second condition if for that logical operator, it's already false. Okay. That's the idea behind short circuit evaluation. So it's good to know, but it's not really necessary for us to remember this one currently. Um, Besides, what we're really interested in is how to use the if statement. So we could have just disregarded this knowledge, but it's good to know that this is what Python is doing underneath to make it more efficient. Okay, so that's for short circuit testing selection statements. So these are more like tips on whenever you're creating decision-making parts in your program. Um, Examine all conditions. Yes, test conditions that contain compound Boolean expressions and all possible value combinations. Yes, but really, if you just follow your this one, if you just follow your flow chart on how your decision making works, then you will never get lost in your program. Okay. All right. We're done with the second half. Let's have a short exercise, right? 10 minutes again, and then we'll have a break. Let's see, not too simple, but not too difficult either. Let's just stick to something like this. All right. So Just a simple temperature program. Write a program that classifies temperatures into different categories, hot, moderate, or cold, based on user input. So what classifies as hot, moderate, or cold? I'll leave it up to you guys. If you are cold with um 30 degrees Celsius, then I'm fine with that. If you're cold with 16 degrees, then that's okay as well. The main point here is you just classify, right, based on user input, whether that's hot, moderate, or cold, all right? So obviously you're going to be using if statements here, inputs, um, ints, maybe, yeah, that's it. If you want to use Celsius or Fahrenheit, I'll leave it up to you guys, okay? But yeah, it should have this kind of output. It should say either the temperature is hot, moderate, or cold. So this should be rather easy. I think it won't take 10 minutes, but I'll just give you 10 minutes. Okay, your timer starts now. All right. So this is great. RJ is actually done. Okay. So let's see your work, RJ. Let me just stop my share screen. All right. The floor is yours, sir. Okay. Can you please explain your code?
Eto po, sir. Kita po ba, sir?
Yes po.
Ay. So, mag-i-input po muna yung user ng temperature. So, inano ko na lang po na in Celsius. So, depende po dun sa in-input niya. Kung yung temp po is equal to 14 or lesser than 14, for me it is cold. Then, if his or her input is greater than 14, but it should be less than or equal to 24, the temp is moderate for me lang po. Tapos pagka mas mataas na po sa 24, that is hot for me na po. So, run ko lang po yung code.
All right.
So, if the temperature is 25, for example, it should be hot. Ito po. If it's 22, it is moderate. So, try ko na lang po ng 12. It is cold po. Ayun po.
So great work, sir. Yeah, so in this case, your program is going from cold to hot. Okay, but the same thing can be said if it's opposite, really. You can go from hot to cold. The important thing is that the way your conditions um the order of your conditions is important, okay?
Yes,
Because
sir.
if you were to swap, let's say condition one and condition two, um, then it will read it as, a different thing. So, it could happen that, um, let's say you have one condition is less than 24, but your first condition is less than 16, for example, but the user will
Mm,
input 14. So, wait, is that correct?
Naka-else
Oh,
if
yeah.
po kasi
Okay,
po.
also if, yeah. But, I'm just making sure that for the others, if you're making conditions, right, make sure that they always fall in that exact order because sometimes a value will um, be true for the first condition, where in fact it should be false there and be true on the second condition. So there are errors that are like that. Um,
Yes,
and
sir.
it's fairly common for beginners. So just remember to watch out for that one. Okay, sir, good job. How about
Thank you,
the
sir.
others? Sir, how about your Sir JJ this time? Are you back, sir? Are you here, po? Yes. All right. Do you have an answer to the exercise? No answer yet. Okay, let's go to the others. How about Sir Seji and Sir Imran? You guys have.
I'm still checking on my code boss, seeing if it's correct.
All right. How about Sir Imran?
Sir, wala pa akong sagot, sir.
Wala pa. Okay, that's all right. Since it went past 10 minutes already. I guess I can just show you guys what I mean earlier about the thing that you have to be careful of when dealing with conditions. Okay, let's do this one before we take our break. So let's say, for example, let's say for example, we have the value of count. Let's say it's equals to int and put enter count, right? And then we have an if condition here that says it should be count is less than 20, right? It will just print. Let's just make it simple. Print x if count is less than 30, then it will print y. Um, So what I want to indicate here is that okay, it should be greater than. Okay. So, for example, in cases like this one, you have two conditions. One is an elif, which should be an elif, right? Let's say the first one is checking if count is greater than 20. If it is greater than 20, then it should print out as X. But if the count is greater than 30, it should print out as Y. So you kind of have a middle ground, right? So the value should be in between 20 to 30. Okay, if you format your conditions to be something like this, you should be careful because if I were to enter something like it's never closed, which part input okay, yeah. So if I were to enter something like 25 and then run it, the answer would be X, so that's correct. But if I were to enter something like 35, the answer is still X where it should be Y. Okay? The answer should be Y. So the sequence of your conditions would actually matter. So it should have been that this one is 30 and this is Y. This one is 20 and this should be X. So in that way, it will always check first the higher number if it's true, and then goes to the elif conditions to check for the lower numbers. So in this case, if we run this code, it will print out the correct answer, Y. If we give a 25, it will also still give out the same exact answer as we did before. So again, the sequence of the conditions matter. And in cases where you're dealing with ranges like this one, it's always better to do something like an elif condition where it's greater than 20, but you should also make sure that its count is less than 30, right? And then this can be greater than or equal to 20. You can do it like that. So this is actually much better if you were to explicitly um, define the range using logical operators, the same way that Sir Roev did it earlier. Okay, so that's basically it. I see this too often as mistakes made by beginners. So yeah, you just need to be careful of this one because it's not really that um, it's an error that's hidden from Python, right? You can't actually see it directly because it's not an error. If you think about it, it's not an error, it's a logic error. Okay. Python does not see this one as an error. So we can still say that computers are still um, very dependent on how we want it to perform, right? It really depends on the instructions that we gave it. So if we ask it to um, like create a sandwich, but you forgot to put in the instructions to get a sandwich, then it's gonna get whatever it can get its hands on, right? For example. So yeah, just remember to be very accurate, I know, very precise with your conditions. Okay. So let's all have a break, a 15-minute break. So it's 3:19. 25, 30, 35. Yeah, let's come back here at 3:35, somewhere around that. Okay, not exactly, but somewhere around that. Okay. I won't be leaving the meeting. I'm just gonna be muting my audio and my video. Okay. So just stay here, guys. Let's get back at 50. All right. Have a good break.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So I hope everyone is back. Can I get a thumbs up of those who are here? Sir JJ. Okay, there's a chat. Okay. Sir Imran is here. How about the others? Sis AG. All right, RJ. Okay. So I think that's good. Um, how about Sir JJ? Are you here? Yes. Okay. All right. So let's continue with our lesson. So where are we? Anyway, I think we're almost done with this PowerPoint, and we think we can proceed to the next one. Control structures. I think there's only the while loop left. Yeah, that's correct. So for the while loop, this can be used to describe the same kind of iteration for the for loop. The only difference is that it depends on a condition um in order for the loop to end. Okay, so it depends on the condition. Um, the sentinel here is just like it's a special value that we can use to indicate the end of a sequence or maybe the absence of a value. So that's what the sentinel is. All right. Um, where's my other screen? Oh, okay. So for the while loop, from the name itself, while, right? Um, it will again depend on the condition. And in fact, the syntax is actually quite simple. So what you see here is while and then condition. And after that is the column, right? And the sequence of statements, but it has to be um, indented to the right. Okay. Um, while loop is also called the entry control loop, but I don't really often hear this one. It's more like um, the classification of it. Okay, entry control loop because it checks the condition first before doing the first iteration. So that's why it's an entry control. Okay, let's create one. All right, a simple while loop. Okay, so while, right? Let's create a variable first. So count is equals to 0, and we have a while loop here, and then the condition is while count is less than or equal to, let's say, 20. All right. Okay, so the moment that the value of count becomes 21, then it won't execute anymore. Okay. All right. So what do we want it to do? Maybe we can just make it print the value of count at that point, and then we're gonna add 1 to count. 1. So maybe not down 1. All right. And then let's have another print statement here that says outside of that says it is outside of the okay, so if we run this code, we'll have this kind of output. So we'll start at 0 and then it will end at 20. All right. And as you can see, the moment that count becomes 21, it won't be the condition won't run. Okay, it's not true. Um, so the entire loop will exit out, and that's why we can see outside of the loop here. Okay, there are special keywords in Python that we can use. All right, in order to control loops in one way or another. So first is we have the term called continue. All right. So the meaning of this is essentially it will skip the current iteration, starting from that line. Okay. So any line before the continue word is executed. Any line after the continue word is not anymore executed. Essentially, it will skip, but not the whole iteration. Okay. It will just run everything before the continue state. All right. Another one is the break statement. All right. And this will essentially exit out of the loop. So meaning if you have a loop that's currently running, and anytime that you detect something that you don't like, for example, and then you're gonna put a break statement there so that it will exit out of the loop. That's what you can do. All right. What other statements do we have? We have break, we have continue. Yeah, I think that's it. So there's only two. Um, that concerns loops, I mean. Okay, let's experiment with that one as well as the while loop here. Mm, let's see. Maybe we can have the age thing again. We're gonna ask for an input, age, and then while loop. Age is less than 18, right? Less than or equal to 7. Less than or equal to 18. And then what do we want it to do? Um, mm, let's say we want our program to always keep on asking the current age. Um, okay, so let's make it print out the current age only, right? So we can see the current age. Now, when do we use break and continue? Let's start with the break. Let's say I want it to, if age is equal to 50, right? I want the program to stop. I want the while loop to stop and go directly to the next statement. So in this case, I want it to break, right? And then over here, I'm gonna say exited the loop, just so that we'll know that it did exit the loop. Okay, so we're gonna run the code. So it's gonna keep on running, right? We're gonna have to put the age here again at the at it inside the while loop. And because it's not going to go back to this line, right? It's just going to go back to this part of the code. Where is my view? View line numbers. Okay, it's not going to go back to line 1. It's just going to go back to line 2, right? This is how loops work. So if I run this code, okay, let's say I have 16. All right. So what would happen with 16? It will just um oh yeah, it will still work and it will print out the age. See? And then it's gonna ask us for another input. Okay, as long as we give it an age that is less than 18. All right. Let's say 10. See? But if we give it a number greater than 18, let's say 20. Wait, 20. All right, it will exit out of the loop, but it doesn't make sense, right? Our condition here, 50, is already greater than 20. So maybe we can change this one, right? Maybe if the user will input something like a dash, for example, it will then exit out of the loop. So let's do this again. Okay. So 5, right? So it will still, okay, I made a mistake. I pressed something wrong. Okay. See, so as long as it's less than 18, it will keep on working. If we go above 18, it will stop working, exit the loop. But but if I say right, but let's say I want to stop the loop manually. I want to stop it manually. So I can say that since I want to end the loop here, I can press the dash here, and then when I press enter, it will what? All right, so the input. mm, so we're gonna have to change this one. Since we're not doing with anything with age, let's see. Let's change this one to just an input, but at this point, we're gonna change it into an int. That way, um, we can still accept it as a string. We can still input a dash, and it won't result into an error. And we can also check the actual age compared to a number. So let's do this again. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then if I wanted to end, I'm gonna put dash, enter for int literal. So this is because it will check, right? So there's really no possible way for us to use a string. Int won't work at this point. Well, if that's the case, then we can just uh we can just change this one to true. So we'll make it run into an infinite loop, right? Because it's always true. Um, so let's remove this one for now. And I want this one to be the first thing that Python should check. So if age is equal to a dash, then it should break. Otherwise, it will do another check. If int age, this is where we'll put it. If int age is less than or equal to 18, then, sorry, then it will print out the age here. Otherwise, it will break again, okay? So you can have multiple break statements because, it can be that you have a lot of conditions that you need to check in order for it to exit out of the loop. What is important is that there should always be a way to exit the loop. Otherwise, it will be a real infinite loop, and then it can possibly harm your device. All right. Of course, modern devices have um, safety nets, right? In order for it not to actually be damaged. But it's good to avoid it altogether. Okay. Um, this really becomes more critical when it comes to servers because it can impact the performance and it can also increase the cost like really, really quickly. The cost will go up really, really quickly when infinite loops are um, present. Okay, let's try and run this code. All right, that works. So if I say for, okay, it still works the same thing. But if I put a dash now, it's gonna exit after the loop, and then it will print out exited the loop. So we got it to still read the input as a string. We can then check the string as is, and then if it passes this check, then it will convert it into a number, and then we can check the current age if it's less than or equal to 18. So again, I'm abusing the condition here. I'm setting it to true, so that it will be forced to enter and execute the code, right? But you have to make sure that somewhere here there is what? A break statement in order to exit the loop, okay? There has to be some way for it to exit in order for it not to become an infinite loop. Right. So what about continue? So again, continue will just essentially skip or go to the next iteration, right? So let's have another condition here. Let's say age is equal to plus. All right. So if we put the plus key, we just want to go to the next iteration. Let's maybe we can print something like um give another another age just for us to know that it's at that part of the code. So if you run this code, let's see if it still works with single numbers, all right? And then if we put plus, right? Give me another age. Okay, see? So I actually have an infinite loop here. And how do you know it's an infinite loop? Well, it's not changing anymore. You can see that the kernel is always black, and the time that elapses is around 30 seconds. So that's a bit of a long time, really, with this very small code. So now I know that it's actually running on an infinite loop. When this kind of situation comes up, make sure that you just go to kernel and then interrupt kernel. Okay. Now, I want you guys to participate. Why did I why did it become an infinite loop? What was missing from my program? All right. Why is it that when I added this one, it it was supposed to be correct, give another age, but why is it running the same line of code over and over again? Okay, can you guys analyze the code and tell me what's the reason why it became an infinite loop?
Would it be because of the continue line of code, sir?
Yes, that's correct, but that's not really the reason. More like the continue, right? If you remember the continue keyword, when this is encountered by Python, it will skip everything else here and then go directly back to the uh, condition, which is in line two. Okay, so Python will start here, run, 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 and then in the counters to continue word, goes back here again, goes back here again. So that's why what we see here is give another age always. But what's the reason? Why did it always stop here at the continue? It's not exactly the continue keyword. Okay, we have an answer here from RJ. All right, so RJ said there should be an input on the elif, correct? Because our input, if you remember, right, we gave it an input of what? A plus. All right. So age right now currently is a plus. Now, when we continue, it goes back here at the beginning and goes here. Is there any part here that says we need to input another age or an input function? There's none, right? The input function is at the bottom. And what does the continue do? It will skip everything that follows after it. So we can never actually change the value of age. Age will always be plus. That's why it will never skip this part. That's why it will always um print give another age, and then it will always run continue. It will never go to this part of our code. So that's why we have this very long message here of um the same thing. Actually, it's not even visible anymore. See, it stopped executing somewhere around here. I wonder if I can see it. What's the end before I press the reset kernel? I'm guessing it's the same value. Mm, now I'm lost. Ah, there we go. Where is it? Where is it? Hmm, 2 hours ago. All right, that's good. So it was still able to save our code because odds are, since it says checkpoint, let's just save it here. Um, where's the checkpoint? Where do you click for the checkpoint? Manual checkpoint. Save all. Yeah. Okay. Um, so that's what we see here. If you keep on scrolling, you'll always see the same statement. All right. So in order for us to avoid that one, all we need to do is add the input here. After saying give another age, then we have to have another input here. So now if we run this code, right, let's make sure that it's still working the same way. Now, if you use plus, it's going to ask us for a different age, right? Now we can give another answer. If we can go back to the beginning, see, we can just continue as is. Now there's an error, okay? Invalid literal with base of 10 with the value of space because we entered what? A blank. So in order for us to actually take care of that one, we can what? Put an else here that is a certain catch-all, like if it's not a number, if it's not let's see. I'll just check the recording. Yep, yep, that's okay, Sir JJ. Ah, all right, it's already out. Okay. Um, where was I? Okay, so how should we check if the user entered something like a space, right? Or any other character? So if they were to input any other character, that would include numbers, right? So that's not good because we need it to check for numbers. We could put another elif here that says if age is equals to a blank space, something like that. We could do that. But we'd have to keep on doing the same thing for all the other characters that are possible on the keyboard, right? So, um, what we can do is maybe we can limit it to just these three characters and numbers, right? So if it's not this, this, and this, and then it's gonna check if it can be a number, then int actually comes back. Let's check the int function. Int function Python. Let's check if it has a parameter that we can use to see, right? So it doesn't actually have one, it's just a base. So we can't actually do anything. Um, right. How do we check if it's a number? Mm, So we have string, right? String converts into string. How should we do this? So from string, we need to check if it's a number. If we just use int directly, it's going to use an error. So let's see. We could check for each number if it's present on the string, right? But that would actually make our code long. So that let's receive that one. Let's reserve that one if we can't think up of anything else. Mm, Yeah, I think there's no other way for us to check other than using substrings. Mhm. So there are two ways you can check for each number, right? You can create a condition where it says you're gonna check if the one is the number one is the first is gonna loop over the string, right? So you can say for uh, X in age, right? So you're gonna loop over the string and then you can check each character if it actually belongs in um X in this string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if it exists there, then we can proceed with this if statement, right? This entire thing. We can put it here. Um, just making sure the uh, indentation is correct. Okay, so now it's fairly deep, right? So it will only execute this code once. Uh, wait. Let's see. I think I'm wrong in the logic here. So what do you want to achieve? We want to achieve that it will accept numbers, the minus and the plus. Any kind of input else, right, we'll have to actually exit out of the loop, and then we'll say that um, user input is wrong, something like that. So chat, age is digit. Ah, yes, I forgot this function. This is actually good, sir. Is digit. Thank you for reminding. So is digit. Okay, we actually have this function available. So returns true if all the characters are digits, otherwise false. All right. So we actually have this function. Um, so we can skip this for loop, but this is actually a viable solution as well. It's more of a manual method, really. So yeah, always check functions if there are functions available to solve your current problem. So we can say, um, I sort of deleted everything. Okay. This part is an else print wrong input, something like that, and then it will break, right? Otherwise, we can check at this point if age dot is digit, because this function will what? It will return either true or false. Okay. So how do we use it? Yep, it's just very straightforward. Text dot is digit. Yep. So if age dot is digit, this is just Grammarly. Then we can proceed with the regular thing that we do here. Mhm. Break, print, and then this one as well. All right. So in this way, if digit, can we actually combine this one into an elif? Yes, we can combine this one into an elif, actually. Elif and then put it here at the bottom of the first condition here. And then if it's not a minus, a plus, or if it's not a digit, then it will automatically be a wrong input. So we can remove this one. Okay, I think this will work. Okay, let's run a code. 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, if we input plus, okay, wrong input. So you see, I added an extra um apostrophe at the end, or is it quote? It's quote. I added a quote at the end, and it's gonna say wrong input because one of them is not a digit, and it will automatically say exit the loop. Wrong input, and then after saying wrong input, it's gonna break, exit out of the loop, and then print this message. So that's how while loops work, okay, and also for continue and break statements, okay. So yeah, that's it. So that's all for while loops, I think. Yep, there's nothing else we can do here. In this case, the example here, it says while data is not equal to a blank. So basically, if you just enter immediately, then it's gonna consider that one as true, and then it will exit out of the loop. So if you just enter a blank number, oh no, a blank value, all right, not a space, a blank value, then it will exit out of the loop, right? Okay, summation with the loop. All right, so basically it's just comparing how for loops and while loops work. Basically, you can achieve the same thing whether it's for loop or a while loop. Um, the break and continue statements will also work for loops. All right. It's not just reserved for while loops, but you often see them in while loops. Okay, especially the break statement. The continuous statement you'll often you can see them sometimes in for loops in case that you want to skip something, like for example, where are for loops here? Um, let's say for example, it's gonna skip if we say if x is equals to 10, 10, right? We can say continue. And then we can essentially see that if you run this code, it will skip out the number 10, all right? So you can see this one more often in for loops. The break is found more often in while loops, but they can work in either one, okay? All right. So if the is digit exists, I think there's also one called is alpha, right? Is alpha, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly. Is alpha, yes. So there's the is alpha. And this is actually more generic. So all characters, yep, for the alphabet letters. So if the user will input um alphabet letters, yeah, English letters. So anything that's not in the alphabet, these things it will also reject it. Okay, it will return false. So is digit, is alpha. I wonder if we can see them here. Other useful functions. Where are they usually found? Built-in functions. Are they found here? Is mm, is instance a subclass? It's not really found here. Let's find something else. Exceptions? No, not really. All right, so I don't really know where it's stored here, but it must be somewhere. You guys can just search that one on your own, okay? On the other functions that you can do to check, like I'm sure there's also something that will check if it's a special character. So if there's a way to check numbers and characters, there should also be a way to check for special characters. All right. Let's see. The while troop and the break. Okay, it's already here. We're done with the break. And random numbers. Do we need to discuss this one? Importing of um libraries. Mm, let's skip this one for now. And anyways, it's gonna come back on the next PowerPoint. Because we're gonna be using the random library again. Okay. So more on that later when we are done with the actual function discussion. Okay, so let's just skip this one. So these are the guys that we can check. So errors to rule out during testing while loop. So incorrectly initialized loop control variable. That's the condition. Failure to update this word correctly within the loop, right? And then failure to test it correctly in continuation condition. So Control C, yes, if you are running or using the terminal when you're running code, you can press Control C and then it will stop it immediately. Okay. While true, yes. So if you're using the combination of while true, there must always be a break statement somewhere in your code. Chapter summary. Yep. So we're done. So that's it basically for control structures. What you need to remember is the for loop, the if, and the while loop. So those are the three control structures in Python, right? So our examples are fairly simple, but again, they can get complicated really quickly. Like for this one, we're limiting ourselves to certain inputs only. All right. So you're gonna have to make use of everything that you need to know, and then everything that you knew, and then you have to make use of functions that are already inside of Python. So age, right? I'm guessing this is string. So age is a string. All right, so this must be a string method. String method Python. Yep, string method Python. Okay, it's here. I'm guessing it's somewhere around here. Yep, is digit. There we go. Is decimal. So here are all the is's that we can use. Where's the is alpha? Here we go. Is alpha. I wonder if there's one. Is numeric. Or numeric is printable, is space. There's even a function that can check if it's actually a space or just a blank value. So these are very useful things because they don't result into an error, right? Because if you just use directly the int function, it has no way of what? Controlling whether the program will stop or not. It will just automatically stop because of the error. Whereas in this case, since it will return true or false, we have a way to check a value first before doing something like int. Okay, and this is actually called error control or I forgot the other term, error control, or there's another word for this. I'm looking for the other word. Can't quite remember what it was. But basically, you're just controlling error handling. There's the word. It's called error handling. Error handling. Okay, you're basically handling how your program will take care of errors so that it won't stop prematurely and will continue on as if nothing happens. This is very important in data science because you're going to be dealing with large data sets, thousands of rows, for example, and let's say you encounter an error somewhere in the middle, let's say at row 500, right? You don't want to do everything all over again. You want it to continue and then just make maybe default values in case it encounters errors like that. Let's say if it's not a digit, then just put none there, or maybe just put zero automatically. In that case, it won't stop the program. It will continue running from 500. After that, it will go to 501, 502, the rows, I mean, and then it will continue on until it finishes the whole thing. So it's not really a waste of time, right? You can just manually nitpick those rows that don't satisfy your condition afterwards. So then you're left with actual real data. Again, um, you're gonna have to process the data after that. So yeah, more on that later. We're done with this. So let's go now to the next PowerPoint. Functions. Okay, right. So here, basically, we're starting out with strings and text files, and we're gonna be exploring more on objects at this point, okay? And what do they actually do and what's in them, okay? All right, so first is we're going to be dealing with substrings. We haven't actually talked about this before. Basically, we have a string, right? This is the structure of our string, okay? In fact, a string is considered to be a data structure, all right? From the name itself, right? It's a structure of data. It has a collection of characters. So yeah, a collection of smaller pieces of data, which is what? The character. The character is one of the smallest pieces of data that we have. Okay. We have the len function here, and basically it just counts how many items there are on the sequence, not just for strings on the sequence. It can work on sequences. In fact, len works on almost anything. Let's try it out here. Okay, let's say we have temp and then a string here like Daniel. Okay, so it will count this one out, how many characters there are. So it will print out 6. That's correct. If we have something like a list here, for example, list, right? Um, we have one, yep, just random numbers. Okay, and then we're gonna print out temp2. It will count how many items there are on that list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, this is the count. How many items? It's not the index numbers, all right? Because this is the real structure of how string is. So each character, right, is located at a certain index number. So the numbers that you see below are called index numbers, right? It will always start at 0 and it will always increase by 1 on each succeeding character. So as you see here, high there, okay, on each succeeding character, it will increase by 1 and it will always start at 0, okay? So yeah, um, if we have to create a for loop for that, let's say, for example, let's copy this one again. Like you want to create your own check. So we can create a for loop for X in range of len of temp. Yep, you can do that one. Because what does len do again? It counts how many um how many characters there are. So there are 6, right? So this will become 6. What does the range do? It will start from 0 up until, but not including to, the stop parameter, which is 6. So it will end up at 5, right? And if you observe our structure here for the string, 1, 2, the length here is 9, okay? But in terms of index numbers, it's going to start from 0 to 8. This is the main reason why the off by 1 error exists, because they want to avoid this kind of error that you're counting the wrong thing, okay? So it will start at 0 and then ends up at 8. So basically, if you do it like this, you can get the summary of all the index numbers of this string, okay? And if you add another one here, like let's say how to access specific characters on a string. So this is what we call substring now, okay? From the name itself, substring. It's part of the string. So you say temp, right? And if you want to access a certain substring, you are going to use a open and close bracket. And then you're going to indicate the index number that you're trying to access. Now, what is X here, by the way? X here at this point is the index number already from the output, you can see, right? So if we put here X, right, and every loop the X changes to another index number, we can also see the character associated with that index number as well, if we are accessing the uh, substring, okay, from that original string. So if we run this code, it will show it as a pair like this one. So 0 is D, 1 is A, 2 is N, and so on and so forth. Exactly the same as what's being shown here, okay? But it's just in a vertical pattern. This one is in a horizontal pattern, but it's the same thing, all right? So range and len. This is a very common combination between these two, okay? What else? So that's it for len and data structures for a string and also for a substring, okay? Let's explore more on what substrings are. Okay, yeah, it's also shown here, the same thing that I had. Let's explore more on substrings. Let's take this one, for example. So if you want to explore, how about not just one substring, more like you want to explore a range of substrings. So you're gonna say temp, right? Let's say I have a name here and then a year at the end, a year. So 2024, right? So if it's 2024, the bottom, we'll run it. We know that starting from starting from index 6, that is where the year starts. So if I want to extract that one, let's say temp of index 6 towards index 9. Let's try this one out. So if we run this code, it's just going to say 202. So it's missing the 4. So that means when you do it like this, okay, from 6 to 9 with a colon in the middle, this is how you get a range of characters in a substring. But it doesn't include the last one. See, index 9 is supposed to be the 4. So if we change this one to 10, will it work? 10. Yes, it will work. But it's kind of annoying because you're counting an additional 1 that's not even displayed here. So it's counterintuitive, right? So what you can do is just remove the number. Okay, and this is us telling Python to start at 6 until the end of the sequence. So if we do it like this, it will show the same thing. So this is actually better. If you were to do the opposite, you're gonna say colon and then up until 6. Without including 6, then it's just gonna get the name. Okay, so the starting point start at the very beginning and then end at 6, but not including a 6, which is the start of the year. So that's what we see here, the year. All right. In fact, you can even assign it to a different variable now. So year is equals to what? Temp of 6 towards the end. and then name is equals to temp, right? Beginning up until 6. All right. And now if you print them out like this, you can use them individually now. Let's say you have name here and then a year. You run it and then you have access to the name and the year itself. So this is one of the basics of processing and manipulating data, right? The data that you're gonna be receiving from different sources, it's gonna look a bit more complicated than this one. Okay, others will look like it has a lot of dashes, character dashes, right? Others look like colons, lots of colons or semicolons. It depends on where the source came from. Okay. But there's a definite pattern, all right? So what I'm just trying to, to share here is that this is you trying to manipulate the current data to get the things that you need, right? There could have been other pieces of data at the end here, but you're not really interested in them, right? So it's annoying if you keep on referencing the whole thing. You just actually need the what? The name and the year of that person, so to speak, or in this case. So yeah, this is you manipulating data, and that's how substrings work. Okay. Negative substrings also work. Like, it's gonna count starting at the end. All right. So if you say, let's remove that one. Let's say we have sample here is equals to temp. Let's say we have, I wanted to start at, this is index 4, index 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so if I say -5 towards the end, all right, and then sample, and then I were to print it out again and compare it to year, year, and then sample. Okay. Sample actually includes the letter L. So how is it counting backwards? So -1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it actually includes this one. If you want to get the same thing as year, but using the negative index, then it should be -4. So -4. Yeah. Um, let's see. Can we modify this one to show negative indexes? So we're gonna start at negative. Yep. All we have to do is change it to a negative len. So it will start at -9. It will stop. No, no. Yes. So it will start at a negative number, but we want it to end at 0 because 0 was the beginning for this one. So if we run this, it will show us the opposite, right? If we're using negative indexes. So see, -4 is the start of the year, which is correct in this case. -4 starts at that is the start of the year. Okay, so now we have two ways of representing indexes, either negatives or positives, right? Why do we use the negative? Sometimes because it's simply easier to count at the end, right? Um, like there's a lot of data here, but what you need is the last three numbers. Okay. So just counting it like this is -1, 2, 3. That's actually a lot easier than you guys counting from the left side up until to this point, right? So that is when negative numbers come in handy. You just want the data at the end of that string. So yeah, the same rules apply with this one. Again, the negative number will just indicate the starting point. It won't actually read backwards. As you can see, the output is still the same. This will just indicate the starting point. So start here, right? And in case of our example earlier, it will start here and then goes directly towards the end. So that's what this one means. Okay, it will still be start and stop. Okay. Next, slicing. Yep, this is us slicing. So that's what we're doing here. When you want to get a range of characters, the other name for that is slicing. So in this case, the programmer has a list of file names, right? And then created a for loop that gets each file name, and then extracts the checks if the text.txt is in the current string. So if .txt in file name. So what does this mean? It basically just means you're checking if this substring exists in this string. Okay, so kind of like this one. If we say if the string 1, 2, 3, oh no, wait, 2024 exists in this string, Daniel 2024. All right. So this is a condition. If this becomes true, if Python finds that the string 2024 is actually a substring of this string, then it will print maybe correct. Okay. And then else it will print wrong. I'm just making it a very simple example. So in this case, it's going to say correct because this string is actually part of this string, a substring, right? If it's not, then if we run this code, it's going to say wrong. So this is a very efficient way of checking substrings. All right. So in fact, this is the one that I was using earlier in our example, in the for loop, in the while loop, when I wanted to check if the character um is a number, is a digit. So I was creating a for loop, and then I was checking if that current character is inside this one. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At that point, I would know if it's a digit or not. X is not defined. So if you say X is equals to input number, right? Run it. Okay, so as long as that number, right, it says correct, we can create a for loop out of this, or maybe a while loop. While true. Okay. Something like that. We can also put a first condition here if x is equal to blank, right? Then we can break it. Okay, this will work. So, wait, this is wrong. We need to ask it for another input afterwards. Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna say 1. 1, yep, it exists. 2. So as you can see, it can detect if it's actually a number, right? But if what's this? Okay. But if I enter something else like letter D, wrong, wrong, okay, or any other special characters, it's gonna say wrong, right? So this is one way we can check if the user entered a digit. I'm not pretty sure, but I think the code underneath is digit maybe kind of looks like this one, but a bit more complex, like more checks, I think is happening in that function. So again, if we just want to skip, then we have to enter something that's blank. All we have to do is press enter, and then it exits out of the loop. Okay. So that's for substrings, data inscriptions. So this actually doesn't involve us in data science, right? Um, but yeah, we'll just go over this one. So basically, Python, right? It's also used a lot for pen testing. So when you say pen testing, it's for penetration testing, right? Penetration testing. So it is a simulated cyber attack used to assess an organization's security posture and identify vulnerabilities that attackers could exploit. So this could be one of your options if you want to explore further this topic, right? Um, this is kind of like a preview of what you will do. Okay. So data encryption is just us trying to, um, let's say, rearrange kind of our data so that it's not directly visible what the actual data is. So that's data encryption. Um, Malicious hackers always monitor networks, right? And they can just easily see data flowing through any router, right? So remember what they always say, don't connect to public Wi-Fi. This is the reason. Because if they are controlling the router and then um they are broadcasting a free Wi-Fi that anyone can just connect, right? That's very dangerous because they have control of the data. They can see all the data that you are passing, right? Um, if they are in control, then odds are your data um is directly visible. So that's when data encryption is important because the data that you are sending them right now is encrypted. So it's not directly visible. Okay. So we in data encryption there are things that we call keys, right? And then um, once it's encrypted, it becomes ciphertext, and then you need to decrypt it afterwards to get the original message. So these are the examples of data encryptions. We have Caesar cipher and a block cipher. This is one of the oldest encryptions that we know. This is one of the modern ones, block cipher. Okay. So this is how it usually works. Block ciphers work in this way. So you have a certain letter, right? Letter I. So your key in this case is a number. So number three. Um, and as an example here, number three, right? So what this means is that what the scissor cipher does is it moves the letter three characters to the right. So HIJKL, that's what we see here, L, N, LM, and OPQ. Okay, we have Q here and so on and so forth, right? And this is what you get. Now, this is the encrypted message. So it's not anymore directly visible, right? Now you need what? You need the key and you need the encrypted message in order for you to get the original message. And usually in the past, what they do is this is one messenger, this is another messenger, right? So it can never be um, retrieved at the same time. They have to be um, you have to have both in order to get the original message. All right. And that's not it. You have to know what the precise key is because there might be that you need to do something else for the key in order to get the original key, something like that. Yeah, they can make it more complicated. But in this case, we're using ASCII values. All right. Now, what are these things? So, long story short, you want all the characters in the world, all the alphabets, right? Whether it's Korean, Chinese, Japanese, English, all the languages in the world, right? You want it to be um, represented by a certain number. Okay, that's what the ASCII values are for. No, actually, that's what the Unicode is for. ASCII is just a part of Unicode, right? This is more specific to our modern keyboard. Um, for the English language, all right? So everything that you see on your keyboard almost always belongs to the ASCII. In fact, if you search ASCII here, you'll see a table, for example, and yeah, so you have, what's the symbol? This one. Okay, so this is for code from 0 to 31. This is referencing to the decimal equivalent of the ASCII code. Um, what are these things? I don't know what these things are. Control characters, which I'm not really sure what they are. Um, okay, printable characters. So these are all the characters that you can see on your keyboard, right? And they belong to this number in the decimal equivalent. Okay, so all the other columns here are just the different number representations of the same symbol. Okay, hex, oct, bin, and then the other one is decimal. We usually use the decimal. It's a lot easier. It's what we're used to. Okay, so here are all the letters that we know of. Okay, here are all the capital letters at the top, right? So what do we do now if we want to like digitize Caesar cipher? So what we do is convert the characters into their ASCII values and then add 3 to it. Then we'll get the equivalent encrypted character. So A is 97, right? You add 3 to it, it becomes 100. You convert it back to plain text, then you get the letter D, okay? So why do we need this roundabout way? Because we can't just say A plus 3, right? If you remember, you cannot just say A, like string A plus 3. That's just not possible, all right? Two different data types, that's not allowed. In fact, if you do it like this, it's going to give you an error. Type error. All right. So they need to be in the same data type. So that's why we need to convert it, the letter first, to an ASCII, add 3 to it, and then convert it back to a letter. Okay. You do this for all the other letters, and then you'll have a digital equivalent of the Caesar cipher. All right. And in fact, this is what the code is for on the next slide. So it's using the is abusing the use of the word function and also for there's another function here. The CHR function, all right? So it's using these two codes, functions to convert from ASCII to letters, all right? So ORD will the ordinal position in the ASCII sequence. So this converts it to an ASCII number. The CHR will do the opposite. It will get the ASCII number and then converts it back to a character, all right? So that's what they do. They work in tandem to do exactly what we were doing earlier, okay? Get the letter, change it to ASCII, add 3, change it back to a character, all right? So this is what this code is for. So you can see that distance here is enter the distance value. So this is your key in your encryption. And then you can see it here being added. See, word value plus distance. And then you can see it converted back here. Where is it? As well. So code, the encrypted code now, the next letter is added to the encrypted code. See, CHR. So it gets a distance and then converts it back. So you guys can just experiment with this code on your own, right? It's not really related to us at the moment. Here is the other code for decryption. So this is for encryption. This is for decryption. So you just avoid these things, okay? The doc string, starting here up to here, you can avoid that one. And also for this one. It's just for explanation purposes. All right, so here's a complete example of those two functions. Those two programs, encrypt and decrypt. All right, so the word is invaders. You have a distance value of 3, the key itself. So this is your encrypted message, right? Now on the opposite side, the receiver, they received the encrypted message, they received the key. Now they know that the message was actually invaders, and now they can prepare themselves for the impending attack or ambush, right? So again, this worked well in ancient times, but it is easy to break using modern computers. This is where we get today the block cipher. Okay, uses plain text character, right, to compute two or more encrypted characters, and then each character is computed using two or more plain text characters. So basically, it creates an invertible matrix. Um, it's a bit kind of confusing right now, but let's just say that these are more complex encryption methods. So basically what they do is it's a fixed sized block. Um, it separates it into blocks. That's what it's called, the block cipher, into depending on how many you want. Like it can be 64 or 128 bits, if I remember correctly. And then um if you were looking for block ciphers, I guess you can look at your routers. There should be a setting there on encryption and what encryption you are looking for. So usually it's the AES, AES. So that's Advanced Encryption Standard, and some of them use the block cipher. Okay, all right. So I'm sure you guys have heard also the advice that your password must be 16 characters long. So that's actually true, because if you were to Google search this one, how long to um crack 16 character password by supercomputer. All right. So, okay, using a long password is critical to password length. A character will take anywhere from a few minutes to a couple of hours. So if your password is something like your last name, I advise you guys to change it. But if you have a 16-character password, it will take them, what, 1 billion years. So it actually takes a very long time. The longer your character password is, the longer it takes for them to crack it. All right. So this is always why it's advisable to um, make your password strength. There's a bar usually when you're creating password, right? To follow that guide. And then there are other securities right now in the industry, right? We have the two-factor authentication, we have the email and the text method thing, right? There's also the um previously used devices. We have a secure phone, like it can only access from that phone, that a code is randomly generated from that app. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys have seen that one, but basically there's an app, right, for that service, and then you're gonna open that app and it's gonna give you random series of numbers. Okay, and based on that numbers which comes from their server, that's the only time you can log in. Okay, so you're gonna log in, give your password, even though it's simple, because you need the app key that they have. Okay, it needs to match what it currently has. So it's usually time limited, like within 30 seconds, you need to input the code that's within the app, because it's gonna reset, and then you're gonna have to wait for another 30 seconds before you can input again. So yeah. In the off chance that you don't want a 16-character password, then you can maintain the current one, but just make sure you have extra layers of security, like um the things that I've mentioned earlier. Okay. All right. What next? Block cipher, strings, and number systems. Yeah, I think we'll stop here for now. It's almost 5, and we're about halfway to this PowerPoint. So I'm guessing on the third session we can finish the whole thing, this one and these two as well. I want to reserve our fourth and fifth to be focused mainly on web scraping and also for pandas because starting at this point, the difficulty will jump. All right. And this is basically the start of data science. Starting here and up to the end, it's all data science part. So yeah, I hope you guys are excited for that one. The first thing that we're gonna learn is what web scraping. We're gonna um, scrape actual data from a live website. So yeah. Any questions before we end our session, by the way? Yep, Sir Saji.
Yeah, so how do I phrase this? Well, So, so it's really so first and third day would be for the general basics of Python, if I'm not mistaken, and then anything onwards, just to clarify, is really the data science part.
Yeah, so the first 3 days, um, we are trying to give you guys a kind of crash course for Python, basic to advanced. And then after that, we go directly to the main data science part. We actually need for to know Python first before we go to the actual data science part because you know, you won't really understand what's happening if you don't have the foundation. And most of our enrollees here actually have no foundation in programming. So that's why we added the crash course for 3 sessions. Um, yeah. Um, I hope that answers your question, Sir Saji.
Yes, it does. Well, thank you.
All right. For Sir Imran, can we have a copy of your Jupyter notes? Yes, sir. We actually have. I'm gonna upload this one later on. So if you just go to your LMS account, all of you should have one by now. Go to lms.philippinecoding.com, go to My Courses after you log in, and then go to Data Science Bootcamp Batch 17. So this should be the only one that you see. All the other things there are my other classes. Um, so right now I only have one PowerPoint uploaded. Here are the lecture notes. It's gonna be the same thing always. I'm gonna be updating this one every session, after every session. And then I'm gonna add a different section for each PowerPoint that we are done using. So later I'm gonna upload um, these two PowerPoints. No, just this one, control structures. I'm gonna upload it and as a different section here. So as well as my lecture notes. Yep, this one, the entire thing. I'm gonna upload it to the lecture notes here. Okay. All right. So anything else? Okay, so I'm gonna take it silence